Lights are hot. You're live.
Welcome to WagerTalk's Last Call. I am Kelly Stewart. Kelly in Vegas on all your social channels. We have 8 Saturdays left until the college football season kicks off, so let's make it some good ones. Today, let's open it up, see who we've got on deck. Kyle Anthony, Ronald Cabang, and of course, Steve Merril. Guys, we're talking UFC, WNBA, MLB. That's really all we got going on right now. Pretty much in the month of July, late June, early July. I'm excited for 4th of July. It's coming up next week as well. And then we're going to hit the home stretch after the All-Star break. But Steve Merril is going to get us to the All-Star break, and Kyle Anthony is going to get us, well, to UFC 303. He is the #1 MMA capper in the last 365 days on WagerTalk.com. He has made us 51 units this year, and we may be head-to-head here on this first fight. Kyle, I'm going to let you start, and then I'll give my little synopsis here at the end.
Yeah, so main event here. I'm going to see if I can sway you to the other side here, but we got Alex Pereira versus Yuri Prochazka here, and you've got, what is it, Pereira's around, I guess, minus 140, minus 150 around, and you've got Prochazka around that plus 120-ish kind of mark. And looking at this fight here, this is a spot where, I was at the last fight, their first fight that they had, and it was awesome, great environment, all these things, and I know a lot of people are kind of talking down a little bit the early stoppage or what all those things. And I think that's, that can be kind of pushed to the side here, because I really look at it and think, what can really Yuri change to get him the victory? And yes, he had some success in that first round, but I feel like it's being a little bit overstated that he did pretty well in the first round. I mean, it's not that he dominated. Yes, he got, there was a takedown involved early before the knockout and all those things, but I do think that this is a spot where Pereira, his just overall power and overall striking is really going to really flourish here, because if you look at, the biggest red flag I would say on the Prochazka side is just how hittable he is. He is extremely hittable, 41% striking defense, not very good at all, always has his hands down. He is very unorthodox, and that can help him in this spot where he can definitely kind of be just awkward and hit you with different angles and all those things. But he has a willingness to just exchange in the pocket, and that's where I think that the striking, that monster hook of Pereira is really going to shine in this spot. Plus, you even look at it is the leg kicks. This is something that, Yuri consistently has had issues checking. You even saw in his most recent fight against Rakic. Rakic is a guy that, definitely a good fighter, but he was chopping away. That leg was almost dead in that first round of Yuri, and Yuri ended up getting a takedown, got, some control time, ended up getting that victory, and that looks great and all, but again, this is one of the best leg kickers in the sport in Alex Pereira. I think that's going to be huge. Also, the one change that you can look at that maybe Yuri would do is takedowns. Look for takedowns, but that's not his thing either. Over the last 5 fights, he's only had 3 successful takedowns. It's not that high. It's not his game plan. It's not what he's looking to do. So I think this really starts to kind of really point you towards Pereira. And then lastly, these guys both fought at UFC 300, which was about 2 months ago. And Pereira didn't really suffer much damage at all. And you had Yuri, who really took a lot of damage, had a brawl. His leg was chewed up. And I just think, again, this is the quick turnaround really does favor Pereira again. I like the knockout here. I think the Pereira gets the job done, but I do like that knockout at that plus money around, plus 115 or so.
I did boost Yuri plus 135 over at the Westgate in Las Vegas. Now, my main thought process here, Kyle, and I want to ask you, because you are the MMA expert. I get a ton of information from you as well as other MMA guys over at WagerTalk.com. But how hard is it to beat a guy twice?
I mean, there's definitely to that, but more, it's once a guy really has that feel for you, I think that it really favors the guy that just won. I think it's the spot where a guy who has had success, who has felt you in there, and the other guy, he's got to change things. And I think that even Pereira, talking about this fight, I love what I hear from him, where he's talking about it and saying, basically, that I have to, I'm looking at Yuri as the first time I've ever fought him. And I love that kind of really just look at this where he's not saying, hey, I was successful, I knocked him out. I like the change. I like that he's looking at this from a really holistic point of just not saying, hey, I knocked him out, I can do that again. He's really looking at it all. It is difficult, no doubt, but I think this is a spot where it really does favor Pereira. And again, I like that knockout. Even though, Yuri is a beast, I think he gets the job done.
All right, Kyle and I are going to be head to head on that one. I'm going to take the dog. Plus, I was able to boost it 15 cents. So we always know that I love getting that little bit of extra plus money. We'll see how this one pans out. No Conor McGregor for UFC 303, but I still think we're going to get some really good fights. I'm so excited about this card. Kyle, talk to me about what else you like on this card and what people can get from you at WagerTalk.com.
Yeah, so I guess the first we'll talk about is this weekend or tonight. What I have 5% max play up, 7-0 run on those overall. Really feeling good about it. And again, we're always looking for those great spots. We're beating the market on a lot of these moves that we're placing in our position. So have that going on. I have 6 plays altogether. I actually may be adding one more, which would be the most plays I have had on one card. So really love this from a betting perspective. And if we're looking at another fight that I do like, it's going to be between Roman Dolidze and Anthony Smith. And this one is really a good fight. I mean, this is definitely a good fight. There's a lot of changing. As you said, Kelly, this is, supposed to be McGregor. That fell out. This fight was supposed to be different fighters. It fell out. Now we've got Dolidze versus Smith. And when you're looking at this fight here, when you're capping, you're really looking for multiple paths to victory, opportunities to win, or have your main path really be just a dominant path. And when you look at Dolidze at the favorite here, I don't really see it. I look at this guy as a very, very one-dimensional guy. If he gets you to the ground, he has just top-level grappling. His jiu-jitsu is elite. We saw what he did against Jack Hermanson, was able to get, slick reversal, got a submission, looked good. The issue here is he's another guy that has an inability to get it to the floor. Out of his last 5 fights, 0 takedowns. And I really do feel that speaks to his cardio issues. He's not a guy that really has been shown to have, really good cardio, lasting, and being to fuel these takedowns. I do think this does hurt him there. But you also look at it is if this plays out on the feet, as much as it's possible that Anthony Smith is completely washed and completely done, I still think he's got a chance here. I think his overall just well-rounded skill set is going to be better. He's going to have crisper combinations. I think his volume is also going to be much better overall. And then you even look at, this is a spot again, is that, if it stays on the feet, Roman Dolidze has absolute shit striking. I mean, this guy cannot throw anything. He does not have no process to his striking. He throws spams, big overhands. And of course, listen, if he lands on Anthony Smith, he can put him out. There's definitely no doubt. But I think that the way that Smith has been a little more risk adverse, a little more, patient, staying at range. And I think overall he's got the better strikes. And I think another spot here, leg kicks are so important in MMA these days. And this is another spot where I think Smith can really chop away at that front leg of Dolidze, who is, very, plodding, slow footwork, where I think Smith can chop away. You saw what he did even against Vitor Petrino. He was a big underdog, ended up cashing the ticket there. And it was really because of the leg kicks, the chopping away. And I do think that's where he's going to find success. So I do like Anthony Smith here at this plus number. I think he gets the job done here.
Guys, if you have a question for Kyle Anthony, drop it in the chat. That's what we're doing here on this beautiful Saturday morning, taking all of your questions. Kyle, 3-leg parlay, Andrew Philly, Bueno Silva, and Joe Pfeiffer. Who messes it up? Which one of the chalky favorites kills the 3-leg parlay?
The Feely fight, I think Feely has a shot to win that fight, but this is one where actually in that particular fight, I do like the under. The under, it's 2.5, and I think it's around like minus 130 or something like that. And I think that this is one where someone's getting knocked out. So Feely, I think the price is a little wide. Yes, Cub is an old guy, but I think it kind of fits into this both being a kind of a brawl, and it plays into the under a little bit. And at that price, I like it. So I would say if somebody is going to really screw that up, I think it's going to be Feely to get clipped there.
We got TikTok on today. So we got some comments on the TikTok channel. about the Yuri fight. They think that he's already making excuses and that Alex is a lock. That's pretty funny, guys. We're gonna see. I don't love being head to head with Kyle. I'll tell you that much. When I logged in this morning and saw he was on the other side, I'm like, ooh, it's never a fun place to be. Any more questions for Kyle? Drop them in the chat. Otherwise, we're gonna tell him he's gotta go. I'm sure he's got a lot of stuff to do. Kyle, again, remind everybody what they can get from you over at WagerTalk.com.
So again, we've got about 6 plays up right now, and again, like I'm kind of there's about one more position that I just want to look at a little bit more this morning as the line's moving, but 6 plays, 7-0 run on 5% plays, even the 4% plays. We have been cashing tickets, 13-4 on 4% best bet plays, and again over the last 19 UFC cards, and I know that everybody loves to bet the pay-per-views, and those are the sexy ones to bet. Everybody knows the names, but the great thing, and I say this all the time, is that UFC is basically almost every week. So there's always going to be opportunities to put our money in strong positions. We don't have to force anything. And if we see it, we're going to bet it. If not, we're going to move on to the next card. And again, out of the last 19 UFC fights, UFC cards, I've cashed 15 of them. So feeling good and seeing the board great. Want to have another big night tonight.
Love it. Kyle Anthony, number 1 MMA handicapper over at WagerTalk.com in the last year. That's 365 days. And so far this year, he's made us 51 units. Let's see if he can't stay hot, all besides, of course, that Yuri fight. We're going to bring in Ronald Cabang to talk some WNBA. Cabang, what's going on, my guy?
Hey, how are you, man? It's early out here in Seattle, so I'm just waking up, but I'm ready to do a show.
Yeah, I love it. The early bird gets the worm there in Seattle, as they say. Cabang, we've got a myriad of WNBA games, but first I wanted to talk to you about the WNBA season as a whole. Do you break it up similar like I would for an NBA season, right? Where you have early November, December, we know guys are working on load management. They're getting prepped, as opposed to then after the All-Star break and into the playoffs. Do you break up WNBA similarly to that?
I think as far as like load management with the NBA versus WNBA, there's not much of that in the WNBA just because their schedule is a little bit spread out. More often, you don't see a lot of back-to-backs or a second game and third night or whatever it might be. So as far as load management, you don't see that too often. I think later in the season we might see that. I think there's a lot of copycat things going on with the WNBA and the NBA. You're starting to see a little bit more flopping. You're starting to see, back, a few seasons ago when I've been betting WNBA for a while, but even little things like, when you're down 5 points at halftime or something like that, and there's 3 seconds on the clock, typically you would want to see a shot go up, right? That's something that the WNBA used to do. Now in the NBA, what happens is they don't want to mess up their stats. They don't take that long, half court heave or whatever to get their to get any like sort of points or opportunities to score. We're starting to see those types of little things there in the WNBA. So I don't think that it's out of the question that load management will come to the WNBA. But right now, that's not something that I put into the handicapping.
We have 2 games today, looking at the schedule, 3 tomorrow, and then 2 on Monday. If you guys have a question for Cabang, put it in the chat. Abby Jackson wants to know, catching 9.5 with Dallas or 13 with the Washington Mystics are her WNBA plays. Cabang, do you have any thoughts on Abby's plays?
Yeah, I would look towards the dogs today, both the Mystics, and so the Mystics. First of all, they've really flipped the switch here. One thing that that you want to look into though, that the effect of Leo Edwards coming back here could mess up some of the chemistry that they have. I looked at her numbers when she's on the court versus off the court. Their offensive efficiency actually comes down, and also their defensive efficiency goes up. So that means they're giving up a lot more points. And one thing with the last 5 or 6 or so games with the Mystics is their offense and defense has been really solid. They've been limiting opponents really well. I think they're actually 4th in offensive rating and 4th in defensive rating in the last 5 games. And a majority of those were without Aaliyah Edwards. So with her being probable, her being inserted back into the lineup, that could mix things up a little bit. So that's the only reason why I would stay away from the spread there. I would actually look towards the total in that game. And for as far as the wings go, I think they're coming off a huge win for them. Obviously, they've been struggling to get a win. I think they lost 12 in a row. Finally got off the schneid there with one win in their last game. Now they're facing one of the top tier teams in the WNBA in the Storm. But this number does seem a little bit high. It's gone up from what, 8.5 or 9 to 11 now. To me, it seems like it's come up a little bit too much. So yeah, if I was to look at that game, I would look towards. Both of these games, I would look towards the dogs here.
All right. Cabang and I are speaking the same language. We love the dogs today. If you guys want to see what the current odds are, go to wagertalk.com/odds. We have the best free odds service on the planet. Cabang, you've got a pair of totals that you like today. Again, if you guys have another question for Ronald, drop it in the chat. But let's talk first about the Mystic Aces game and why you like the under.
Yeah, so this one actually pops off in less than 3 hours. So this is the early game for today. Aces, they're coming off, a 3-game winning streak. They're heavy road favorites here. It includes each one of those 3 wins as double-digit margins too. Mystics, they're coming off a 3-point loss actually to the Sun in OT. They actually covered 5 of their last 8 games though. So that's what I was talking about, how them playing a little bit better in the last few games here. One big plus. Not one big plus, but one big change for the Mystics here, though, is what I was talking about earlier. Aaliyah Edwards is considered probable, so she should play. Both teams have been playing a faster pace. Both teams offensively have been really efficient. Both teams top 4 in pace, top 4 in offensive rating, and effective field goal percentage in the last 5 games. Mystics actually have the better defensive rating in the last 5 games. The Aces should have the advantage in like free throw rate, defensive rebounds, being able to do those things. Mystics, they do send opponents to the line at the highest rate in the last 5 games, though. That's so from a side perspective, if you like the Aces, you're banking on those extra opportunities. If you're looking at the Mystics side, it's really they have the better defense, so maybe they could limit the Aces there. But I think a lot of the things that I've mentioned really points towards the over. But the fact is, it went from 168 to 174.5, and that's the only reason why I would actually look towards the under, because it's shifted so much from the opening number to the point where these are numbers that we don't expect them, or I don't expect these teams to go over in their team total. So if you look at the Aces, their team total right now is 93.5, and I think they've only gone over this number 3 times so far this season. As far as the Mystics go, they have been going over this 80.5 that their team total is, but they're coming off of that overtime game in a really, to me, sort of a letdown spot here. And like I mentioned earlier, Aaliyah Edwards back into the fold here. That actually brings their offensive rating down a little bit overall. So I expect them to stay under their team total. I expect the Aces to stay under their team total with how the Mystics have been playing some solid defense. So at the current number of 174.5, I would say the under is the way to go. And there was one specific trend that I looked at that really pointed me in that direction. If you look at teams coming off an OT game that they lost but did cover, the following game they're 13-6 to the under since 2017. So hitting at a really high rate on that under there. It seems like these teams are coming off of that OT game tend to struggle.
All right, Ron, you mentioned trends and sometimes certain angles. Where do you get your trends and angles?
Yeah, so themoneyballer.com. That's the one spot, right, that I go to every single day for MLB and WNBA, and it's been treating me really well, especially with the WNBA right now. You can get all your comprehensive stats, advanced stats, betting insights, all these trends that I mentioned, all on one easy to use page. They're like, it's on a matchup basis too, so you can see how teams do against each other as far as like offensive rating versus defensive rating, and 3-point shooting defense versus 3-point shooting offense. All those aspects that you like to see, 4 factors and all that stuff. That's on themoneyballer.com. And one of the coolest things about it, and a lot of people tell us about it, is it's optimized for both desktop and mobile. So if you're out on the go, you can actually look at your phone, get all the insights, and place a bet on the go. So whether you're on vacation or whatever, you could just drop in, cap the game in 5 minutes or less, from your phone, and it's easy, really easy to use, really easy on the eyes, and it's free and through the end of July too. So if you want to take a chance and see what I use to handicap my games, yeah, that's the moneyballer.com. I use it every single day.
I love it. I cannot wait until you guys launch some more football
Good job.
analytics
Does it
and
work?
data on the site. We all know I'm not going to waste my time handicapping WNBA when I have guys like Ronald Cabang to send me some plays. Frank Bridges wants to know, just getting on any first half picks or leads, RC?
Yeah, with that, I mean, we also have those first half trends over on the moneyballer.com. So even though I didn't do any research, I can pull that type of stuff up right now. So straight up aces in the first half, 11-3 on the season, 5-0 straight up as road favorites. If you look at them from a spread perspective, though, even though they're winning those games, they're actually 5-9 against the spread in the first half. If you look at some of the totals, I think the Mystics is one way to look at it. So Mystics in the first half this season, their opponent team totals are going to the under, 11-5-1 to the under in the first half for Mystics opponents. And if the Mystics are a home dog, 6-0-1 to the under. So they're really limiting opponents when they're at home in the first half. If you look at the Dallas and Storm game, first half, one thing with the Wings, they're actually a really good first half team. So first half as road dogs, they're 6-2 against the spread. If you look at their opponent team totals in the first half, when they're a road dog, 7-1 to the under. So the reason why they're covering these games are they're actually playing defense on the road as a dog. So those are some first half numbers that really pops out right away.
All right, the second game today, 9 p.m. Eastern, 6 p.m. Pacific. The Wings take on your hometown team, the Seattle Storm. Cabang, you're looking at a team total in this one.
Yeah, so like I said earlier, the Wings coming off of a first win after a long losing streak. They did come off of beating the Lynx. I think it was like a hangover for the Lynx there. After winning the Commissioner's Cup. But the thing is, even though they got that win, they're still struggling on the defensive side of the ball. The one bet that I took on that game against the Lynx was the Lynx team total over. I wasn't sure if they were gonna have the hangover, and they definitely did. But one thing was for sure that the Wings defense still struggles. Opponents are now 13-3 to their team total over against the Wings. If you look at the Storm, they had a couple losses against the Mercury and Aces. Now they've come back and have a couple double-digit wins here, including one against the Sun, who are one of the top-tier teams in the W. Wings are getting a little bit healthier, which is why I think that they're kind of pulling in some momentum, getting on the win column at the very least. But Satu Sabali is still not not playing. She's still injured, and once she gets back, I think they're going to become one of the better teams in the league. But till then, they're going to be where they are towards the bottom. If you look at some trends and angles, I mean, both teams right now, they're strong in their current situation. So one thing that I mentioned with the Wings that I was talking about is that road dog situation. They've been pretty good as the road dog in that first half, it looks like. But on the opposite side, the Storm, they've been really good in the first half as well, at home specifically, 4-2. And the reason the Wings do well against the number in the first half on the road, like I mentioned earlier, they are limiting opponents, and that's one thing that we saw, 7-1 to their team total under for opponents when the Wings are a road dog. But even with that in the first half, they actually let it go in the second half. Teams are, even though they're 7-1 to the under, opponents are 4-3-1 to the team total over. So they get it all back in that second half as far as their opponents goes. And that's what I was thinking is maybe even if you don't like the first, the full game team total for the Storm, 88.5, just because at home, the Storm are actually first in the offensive rating at home. I think is like 90, 93 or something like that with their offensive rating, but they average 88.5 points per game, which is close to the team total. But the thing is, they face some really solid defenses in those home games as well. The Wings are actually 12th, dead last in defensive rating in the last 5 and last 10 games. So with that said, if you want to take a live number on the Storm, just in case the whole Wings first half on the road as a road dog stays true, I think that would be the best way to go. But I still think that the Storm can actually hit 90 here against this Wings team. I think the pace goes up, and the Wings' defensive efficiency stays dead last in the league against this really strong offensive team in the Storm.
Bat and cleanup, we're going to bring in Steve Merril here to talk some MLB. So if you have an MLB question, save that, drop it in the chat, and we'll get to you in a few minutes. We got about 4 more minutes with RC. And Marcus White wants to know, Cabang, do you have any player props you're looking at today? He likes Asia, 10 boards, and Kelsey Plum over 15 points.
Yeah, I like the Asia over 10 boards. I think she's going to be should be around that, just because if I expect the Mystics to struggle a little bit on the offensive side of the ball, that's going to be more rebounding opportunities for Asia. For me, with Plum, Jackie Young, Chelsea Gray, between those three, it's really tough for me to choose an over points on either one of them, just because you don't know which game either one of these guards are going to go off for the Aces. It's a lot more easier to really take Asia props with the Aces team. On the other game, I would look towards Arike. Just continue to look towards her overs and points. She's going to get a lot of opportunities. Always put up 20 plus shots per game. So if those threes are going in for her, those points props are going to continue to go over for her.
All right, guys. Any more question here? Questions for Ronald, drop them in the chat. Otherwise, Ronald, we're going to let you go. But first, tell me what you've got going on over at WagerTalk.com.
Yeah, like I said, the WNBA has been treating me well. Number one at WagerTalk in the last 365 days, last 30 days, last 7 days, even the last 7 days, 10-1 in the W. Last 3 days, 6-0. So the W is really treating me well right now. I don't have any bets placed yet. The 2 that I talked about today are my biggest leans, though. I'm not 100% sure I'm gonna get there. When I get in these types of zones, like I am seeing these games really well, I tend to not force it. And the two games that I have today, as much as I like what I spoke about, I'm not as confident in them as the last few days. So I may not have something official for my Wager Talk clients today, but I'll continue to dive deep into it. MLB has been pretty good. I think 5-2 the last few days too. So maybe I have something in the MLB later today. But right now, nothing official for clients. Maybe check back in an hour.
Awesome. Cabang at UCapper over on all your social channels, just crushing the WNBA. All right, we're going to bring in Steve Merril, talk some MLB. If you guys have a question for Steve, drop it in the chat. I'm going to the Rays game here in about 4.5 hours. They're playing the Nationals, Steve. So first, I got to know, because I'm selfish, what am I betting on this game? You know I can't go without buying a 50-50 ticket and having a little action.
Damn, Kelly, I keep forgetting you can go to Rays games. And all year long, I've been saying maybe my Washington Nationals. We'll see. They're getting close to the playoffs. But I keep saying not Drew Martin's Tampa Bay Rays because I don't know who hell on earth goes to Rays games.
Fan.
That's right. I just said not Drew. I said not Drew Martin.
Oh,
I said not Drew Martin's Tampa Bay Rays. Yeah, that's what I'm saying. But now it's Kelly Stewart's via Kansas Tampa Bay Rays.
Steve, I'm a White Sox fan. Remember, we talked about this a few weeks back.
You love shorts.
I'm an insufferable White Sox fan, but I will say this: they did get the win as a slight favorite yesterday. You want to bet on the White Sox when they're the favorite with the fishy line. I did lay 121 with them yesterday, so maybe I'll continue my 1-0 baseball streak for the week. If you can help me out, what am I looking at here? I've got the Wager Talk odds screen open. We want to bet on this game because we're going. So nothing too crazy, but I want something to cheer for. Am I laying it with the Rays here? 135 is about my threshold. Last Rays game, I took the over when they played Ariel Epstein's Yankees, and it was the easiest. It hit in like the middle of the 5th. We just had a bunch of Vivas, and I didn't have to sweat it. I would prefer another winner like that today.
See, I'm going down the rabbit hole now. How is she a Ravens fan and a Yankees fan? I know she's New York. So how did she become a Ravens fan?
Dad is from Baltimore. So dad is an Orioles Ravens fan.
Wow. Orioles.
She was born in New York. Grandpa is a huge Yankees fan. He's from the Bronx.
Got you. So Ravens and then the Yankees, but then the Orioles in the
I
house.
mean, would
Wow.
you want to be a Giants or Jets fan?
Yeah, I was gonna say, what are the options? Giants, Jets. I mean, yeah, I guess she's young enough. The
No.
Giants were good at one point. She saw some Super
Yeah,
Bowls,
I
right? Is she
guess.
that young?
I guess they had a couple of wins over Tom Brady in the Eli Manning era. I guess
Correct.
we'll call it the Eli Manning era, the really good defensive era. So that's fair. But I think by then she was already suckered in to being a Ravens fan.
Well, I will say, if you're going to the game, you probably want to bet on the over, right? That's the fun bet, and I don't disagree with the over here. 7.5. Obviously 7 is a very key number, but 7.5 is still a very low total for baseball. And my Nationals have gone over 5 of the last 6, including last night. They had 13, or 2 games ago, they had 13 runs in their final game against San Diego. Your Rays have been offensively challenged at times this year, but it looks like they're starting to break out a bit. 9 hits or more in 3 of their last 4 games, 11 hits in a couple of those. I think the over is worth a look, and you don't have to pick a team that way. You can just cheer for both teams when they're at the plate.
Yeah, that's always fun. I'll be sitting in the outfield in the Viva suite. I'm very excited. Actually, I might be sitting on the Viva deck. I don't remember. I should look at my tickets again. But regardless, a whole bunch of us are going to be there. So if you guys are in Tampa today and you're going to the Rays game, come by and I will personally hand you some Vivas. I'm excited, Steve. It's going to be really a fun day because I get to hang out in the air conditioning instead of the 100-degree weather that we're having here in South Florida. You've got a trio of games that you like on today's slate. So let's get to those first before we get everybody in the chat's questions. We're going to start off with this one, Rangers Orioles. What do you like in this one, Steve?
Yeah, let's talk about, as a child, my Baltimore Orioles, Ariel Epstein's father's Baltimore Orioles, and they once again are my Orioles. Really good team. In fact, if you look right now, if the playoffs were to start today, the Orioles would be the number 1 seed. Yankees and Orioles are tied, but the Yankees have played 2 extra games. In fact, the Yankees have played 4 more games than Cleveland. The Guardians don't look now, but Brian Leonard, Ralph Michaels, Cleveland Guardians have the best win percentage in the American League. They'd actually be the 1 seed. I misspoke. The Orioles would be the 2 seed. But Baltimore has the best run differential in the American League, and they're only actually 1 run behind, I believe, Dan Alexander's Phillies for the best in baseball. So this is a really good Orioles team. Meanwhile, the Texas Rangers just continue to underachieve. Dan the Man and I talked about this on the baseball show yesterday on Friday with Brian Leonard. And, the Orioles smoked them 11-2 in that first game. We said, oh, maybe it's a bounce back spot for the World Series champs. They've got Scherzer on the mound. And it didn't matter. They lost another one. Texas has now lost 5 straight. This is the defending World Series champs that are now 37-44 on the season. And this is a situation in which it's Orioles or pass for me until I see otherwise. This is a really good Baltimore team that's been the best moneymaker in baseball now for several years. And the odds makers in the betting public, I still just have not caught on to how good this team is. I need to see the Rangers turn the corner before I'm going to back them. High total, by the way, 9.5 to the under. One of the highest totals on the board. And as is often the case, Ralph Michaels and I talk about this a lot. The highest totals go over, the lowest go under. And this is one of the higher totals today. So we probably will see some runs here as well in Baltimore.
All right, so we're going to see some runs in Baltimore, minus 150-ish, currently on the WagerTalk odds screen. If you guys are not over there, you need to go to wagertalk.com/odds. Best free odds screen in the business. All right, B Daddy, Colorado versus Chicago. The total is 9. Woof. Yesterday's game, as I mentioned, I laid it with my Chicago White Sox. Colorado, we all know about the altitude. We all know about the rock pile and how the ball loves to fly out there. But this game is in the South Side. What are your thoughts on the total here, Steve?
Yeah, your Chicago White Sox, best. I'm wearing black. I'm wearing black in honor of the best betting scandal in the history of sports 100 years ago. And that's why Kelly loves the White Sox. When she got into betting, she read about the Black Sox of 1919 and she was hooked. And then she saw the short shorts from 1976 and her and Gardner Minshew were hooked right after that. It's funny you talk about the Rockies, Kelly. I brought this up on a show I did late last night on Sports Grid that when I look at baseball stats, I always look at road numbers because you want to take in all different types of ballparks. And obviously with Colorado, you have to do that, right? Because it's such a hitter-friendly park. You see totals of around 11 or 12. Well, I looked, and the Rockies have the worst ERA in baseball. This is both starters and bullpen. Overall team ERA, worst in baseball. Oh, not a surprise, right? They play in a hitter-friendly park. So I looked at road numbers only. They had the worst road ERA in all of baseball, 30th both home and away. In fact, their bullpen numbers are worse on the road this year than at home. So it just shows how bad this pitching staff has been. And look, even your White Sox have to win 40 or 50 games this season. They're in the low 20s right now. This is a winnable game for Chicago, and I don't think they'll pass the opportunity to do so and get a win against a really bad Rockies team, and that's why they are a slight favorite.
Steve, fun fact. I had cousins. We went down this rabbit hole of why I'm a White Sox fan. My sister moved to Colorado in 1993. I was, well, it doesn't matter how old I was, but I went to some of the first inaugural games that summer. So my second favorite team,
You're
the
that
Colorado
old?
Rockies. So I have the two bottom feeders in the league. So maybe it is time I adopt those Tampa Bay Rays. It's about time. It's time to move on from the two garbage teams. Paul Konerko and a couple of those guys. Who was the guy with the beard that won the World Series for the Rockies? I can't remember, but I was a big fan of his there in the early 2000s. Hilarious that I love absolute garbage teams. Dodgers, Giants is next on your list, Steve. Let's get into this one. Tell me what your thoughts are on this afternoon game.
Yeah, so I've talked about this with the Dodgers for several years here on numerous shows on WagerTalk TV. We either Wager Talk today, we'll do the baseball show, obviously, every day live here on the channel during the week. And this continues to work. And it's really simple when you're looking at Dodger games. You either play Dodgers -1.5 run line because they're usually a favorite. You don't lay it, you take the shorter price on the run line, the better plus money price often, or you play the other team outright. And you often, when the Dodgers don't show up, they lose outright. And you get teams like San Francisco today, +170, +180, that can cash. Meanwhile, if you're going to play the Dodgers here, you don't lay the -210, you play the run line. And I do think this is a focus spot for LA tonight. I thought last night would actually be a focus spot, first game against San Francisco. But the Dodgers actually closed as an underdog last night as Logan Webb was on the mound. And the Giants got him 5-3. That was the second straight win for him. The Giants closed out a May series and beat him as well. So I think the Dodgers will be focused here. I like them winning this game, but I'm not going to lay over $2. I'd prefer to play the run line. Dodgers -1.5 on the run lines, a much more reasonable -110, -115. And once again, over this last several years, when the Dodgers win, more times than not, they win by 2 or more because they have a good offense. And on the road, also, I like the run line because they always get to bat 9 times. You don't have to worry about that 1-run lead in the bottom of the 9th. So I think this sets up for one of those good Dodger -1.5 run line plays that has worked pretty well over the years.
All right, the last game that Steve wants to talk about before we get into some questions from the chat. We're going Twins Mariners all the way in Seattle once again today.
Yeah, I don't know anybody that roots for either one of these teams. You got to help me out here, Kelly. If you can think of
Cabang's
someone,
gotta
let
be.
me know.
He's got to be a Mariners fan, right? He
Oh,
has to be.
Cabang. Yeah. Ronald probably is. Yeah, that's a good call.
Yeah.
He was just on. I just
Yeah,
saw him
that's what I
5
mean.
minutes
We've already
ago.
been in
Thank
Seattle
you.
once today. Let's go back out there again.
Yeah. See, 2 minds are greater than one, right? That's a perfect example. I just saw a Seattle guy and didn't even think. Well, he's talking WNBA. He never touches baseball, so that's why I don't think of him. But who knows?
No,
He might root for him.
he definitely talks baseball. He handicaps baseball, but I think it's from a fan perspective that we never hear him speak about baseball, right? So I don't actually know. I'm just guessing geographically.
Well, they're a good team this year, so he should be jumping on the bandwagon. In fact, coming into this week, I saw the 5 best starting ERAs in baseball, and it was Orioles, Yankees, Dodgers, Phillies, right? No surprise. But the other team in the top 5 best starting ERA was actually Seattle. So this is a very good pitching staff. The offense is challenged at times, and that's why they have to win low-scoring games. That's kind of their MO. That's how they get it done. And it's been a pitcher-friendly park for the most part for a while now. We see a 7.5 under 25 at some of the sharper books. So I do think the under 7.5 probably is the way to go here. Twins coming in is actually a slight road favorite, which is a little bit surprising. Seattle got them last night 3-2. That game was very low scoring, stayed under the 7. In fact, halfway through the in-game line was 4.5. But yeah, it's under a pass for me once again with the Mariners at home under 7.5.
All right, under or pass for Steve there in the evening game. All right, Andrew, I'm not going to try to pronounce your last name.
Try it.
Wojcik? I don't know. Anyway,
Steve,
how about Angels, Tigers?
Wojcik, you're fine.
That's
You
what
made
I
that
said.
sound much more complicated. I think Wojcik looks fine. Yeah, I thought that was gonna be a lot
I'm
worse.
really
I was
good at
looking for a lot
butchering
more.
names. That's if you want to know what's funny, we had Kyle Anthony on to start the show. And I never do MMA because I am deathly afraid of how bad
Correct.
I'm going to butcher their names. I'm like, this is why I'm
I'm
not going
with
to
you.
handicap. I'm not going to waste my time. I'll just get Kyle's and VR's MMA plays and I'll just call them by whatever their nickname is because their last names are so incredibly hard that I'm like, I just not going to embarrass myself.
Yeah, I'll give you my cheat, by the way. You can steal this and use it on shows. When I'm doing Wager Talk today and we have those guys on, I'll give Teddy credit. He's not afraid to say he can't pronounce it. I think the Prez rolls with it too. For some reason, as a professional, I don't like to admit I can't pronounce them, even though I don't handicap a lot of UFC. But the key is you just go, give me something in the main event and then give me something on the undercard. And when it's like Jacobak or Hakelbak against Hakelbak, then it just that's a good cheat you can use. Just give me something on the undercard, or give me a nice underdog we can talk about. Then you don't have to mention them. There you go. It's my
That
tip
is
of the day.
hilarious, Steve. All right, let's get to
No,
Andrew's game. Angels, Tigers, Johnny Detroit's Tigers. I don't know anybody that's an
yes,
Angels fan. Isn't that kind of crazy?
but you did it the way I do it. You said Johnny Detroit's Tigers. You didn't say Johnny Detroit's Detroit Tigers. So you did it exactly like I do. That's why you and I are consummate pros here on Wager Talk TV. Um, Fun fact for you. So I'm talking about pitching ERAs last night, and I'm looking up the whips. I actually think walks and hits per innings pitch is the best overall pitching stat. And once again, I like to look at road numbers because it takes in all different parks. Top two teams, I think, I don't have it in front of me, but I think it was like Orioles and Dodgers. The third best whip on the road this year was the Reds. Shocked by that. Then you had like Guardians and maybe Yankees, I think. The Angels had the sixth best whip. They're actually ahead of the two other teams that are playoff teams, like the Phillies and somebody else. So my point is, this pitching staff is a lot better than people realize. It's just the offense is not there. And Detroit's been very mediocre at times offensively this season as well. And we got a total of 8 here. Sharper books are now 8 under 15. It's a lot of 8s, but then the sharper books have 8 under 15. I agree with the sharp money lean. I like under 8 in this Tiger Angels game.
All right, any more questions for Steve? Please drop them in the chat. Okay, here's a good one. Who's going yard today, Steve? Do you do a lot with home run props?
No, and Tokyo Brandon was on a few weeks ago when I did Wager Talk today, and I thought this was a great, Tokyo's a great baseball capper. He's a former MLB scout. He said there is never, he might play him or you can play around with him, but he said there is never value with a yes home run prop. He didn't say it exactly that way, but that was what he was getting to, because a lot of the times, first of all, they don't let you take the no. And if they do, it's the juice is maybe plus 400, minus 700, right? But he said, like guys like Ohtani and the big name guys like Judge are like 4-1, 5-1. He said no hitter in baseball is going to hit a home run like every 4 at bats or every 5 times up, or once a game basically. And you can do the math to figure that out, folks. Nobody hits 162 home runs or comes anywhere close. So I don't even look at him, Kelly. I think the house edge is huge, and I just don't see any value with the yes. I've never seen the value of the yes, but then again, I don't follow it that closely.
Swiss Solis says, Steve's been killing these bets. I'm glad I bought the package. Speaking of package, Steve, what do you got up over at wagertalk.com?
So we had a big play on Tuesday. We were on a 13-3 run. We missed it, right? And everyone thinks the sky is falling. Even Chicken Little texted me and said the sky is falling. I go, God damn it, Chicken Little. We're 15-6 the last 21. We're 20-8 the last 28. 71% runs. If you take out that one miss on Tuesday, 15-5 and 20-7 on all other plays the last 3 weeks. My point, don't buy the single plays, buy the packages, take the investment approach. I do have 2 strong best bets today. They're each 25. We're getting them both for 29. You're getting that second play for just $4. Try a 7-day. Try the rest of baseball through the All-Star break for just 109 the next couple weeks. Or the Big Daddy promo code is back as we get close to football. By the way, football early birds, several $100 discounts on football. But how about every sport every day for the next year? That's a serious investment approach. Works out to just $3 a day. That's about $1.50 per play with promo code SM365. The details are on my page right now. You can get all sports, all access for the next 365 days for just $3 a day, about $1.50 per play with promo code SM365. Steve Merril, WagerTalk.com. And oh, by the way, a bonus free baseball play, a game we did not get to on the show here, Pirates Braves, late afternoon. Go check that out for free on my page, Steve Merril, WagerTalk.com.
WT.buzz /SM is Steve's Wager Talk short link if you're lazy like me. Boss 429 wants to know, are the Red Sox in a bounce back spot tonight?
Well, the Red Sox have been red hot, so there's two ways to look at it. Yeah, it's a bounce back because they've been winning, but then again, I'm kind of looking for them to cool off at some point. They underachieved to start the season, but they've been as good as anybody in baseball the last couple of weeks. I'd be a little careful with them. A blowout loss last night, 9-2, obviously, to the Padres. San Diego hitting the ball really well. And what's interesting about the Padres, Kelly, is their road numbers offensively. I talked about why I like to look at road numbers. They're a good example. For most of the season, they're averaging about a run and a half more, hitting about 40 points higher on the road than at Petco. San Diego's home field has never been very hitter friendly. So I felt all season long the Padres were a little bit underrated offensively. They just had a nice home stand, good start in Boston last night. I'd be careful fading San Diego right now. I'm not necessarily anti-Boston. I just think the Padres are a play-on team.
Playing on the Padres. Any more questions from the chat? You guys got about 30 seconds to drop them. Otherwise, I'm headed to Tampa early. It's about time for some Viva Tequila seltzers and cheering for some runs. Steve said, just bet the over, Kelly. I'm going to bet the over on the number of 50-50 tickets I buy as well, and probably the number of Vivas that I consume today. All jokes aside, I think we're going to let you guys go because I got no more questions from the chat. We appreciate you guys being so interactive here. We appreciate Steve, Cabang, and of course, Kyle Anthony with some UFC. Make sure you guys head over to WagerTalk.com, see what those guys have up for sale on this beautiful Saturday. 8 more Saturdays until college football starts. I'll be with you guys again next Saturday, I believe. 2 more Saturdays, and then I'm headed off to Italy. By the time we get back, it's basically football season, guys. We're going to get into the chat. Take care of you guys every single Saturday morning until we get to football season. Thank you guys again for hanging out. Make sure you head over to WagerTalk.com, like and subscribe to our YouTube channel. Give us some comments. Tell us what you like. Tell us what you don't like, and we'll try to accommodate you. Again, make sure you guys are following Wager Talk on all your social channels, and Kelly in Vegas as well. Steve Merril, Ronald Cabang, Kyle Anthony. Thank you, guys.